Welcome to Whiteline Television. This month, we meet some old blokes of the highway. A group of special volunteers helping drivers on and off the road. And we profile an Australian icon of the road transport industry. Hi, I'm Shane. Crawling the Hume is an event that happens every 2 years and it brings truck drivers together, both past and present. I was fortunate enough to meet some of these blokes and have a look at their restored trucks. As you will see, their characters are almost as colourful as their vehicles. Well, we're here in Winton, Victoria today. The sun's out, the trucks are about, and we've been lucky enough to catch up with event organiser Robert French. Robert, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much.
So Robert, for those of us that don't know, what is Crawling the Hume?
Crawling the Hume is try to run a reenactment of the old trucks, which are 30 years old or older, to run on the old Hume Highway. And people that have restored trucks, they can relive their dream about what happened on the Hume Highway. So that's the whole idea, of to run from Campbellfield up to Albury with the stop at Winton, which we're at now.
So mate, how did it all start?
Well, it all started by hauling the Hume up in Sydney, and they started hauling the Hume, and they were going to have about 5 trucks run down the old Hume Highway to Yass. It got out of hand and it ended up about 100 trucks, and they did that, and I went on that. I drove up in my truck to Sydney, drove back. We went to Yass, to the Servicemen's Club, and they decided that, and after a few beers, I put my hand up and said, I'm going to do one of these in Victoria, but I always thought about doing it. And Roger Marchetti was there, and he said, look, I'll give you a hand with that. And Peter Rowlands said, look, I've got the map already to put out that, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And so we actually copied Hall and the Hume, and they help us. As you can see, they've lent us the van to give us the registrations and all that, and we do all the same stuff with the procedure.
You must be pretty happy with the strong showing of support and the quality of gear that we're seeing rolled up.
Oh yeah, extremely happy. I'm happy with the people that put their hand up to give us, to volunteer to do all the marshalling and whatever. They just come out the woodwork, and without the volunteers you wouldn't be able to do anything. I'm happy with all the trucks that have turned up. They gave it a great support, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
The transport industry itself, it's changed quite a bit over the years. Do you think with the advancement of the roads and technology, has it somewhat diluted the skill set of the modern day driver?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, to drive Melbourne to Sydney on that old road, it's a 3-hour drive to Albury. It'll take us, 6 hours. And, the skills of driving now, that freeway's flat out, everyone's got 600 horsepower, put on cruise control, 100 kilometres an hour. Most of the time, some of the old days when they were really loaded, they'd be down to, to 5 miles an hour, with that, and go all night. But yeah, so yeah, there's not the skill set now, that is for sure.
We caught up with Norm here today, and we're standing in front of his Gold Nugget SAR. Norm, can you tell us a little bit about it, mate?
Yeah, she's a 85 SAR Gold Nugget. I brought it off Kloss Brothers in Geelong. They restored it. It's all done up in the Ian Alley's colours, their scheme. And it's got a Series 60 Detroit in it, 18 speed and airbag, and all the bling on it that you can get. So
steering one of these back in the 80s, you would have been the ants pants of the highway.
Oh yeah, yeah. These things were race trucks. They were going up and down the road, so yeah, it would have been good to drive them when they were new. We grew up in Wallen. That's where we grew up, and so it's on the old highway. And yeah, I didn't do any interstate work, but we've done a lot of Melbourne stuff. We've got earth moving business and trucks and tippers and all that sort of stuff. So, but grew up on the side of the highway, just watching trucks going up and down the road, and yeah, loved the sound of them and all of that. So.
Definitely a passion of yours. Is that what made you purchase this immaculate gear?
Oh yeah, when these things were brand new, we'd go and have a look at them at the truck stop, and they were the best trucks to get on the road then. So, but yeah, it's just one of the, and SARs. Our first Kenworth was an SAR, so got a thing about SARs. So
Well, today's the perfect chance to show it off. You must be pretty proud standing in front of it.
Yeah, no, it is, and we go to heaps of truck shows with it, and everyone loves it. Gets plenty of photos and stuff in it, and it's just a cool truck to drive. Like go through the main street of the town there, and everyone's taking photos of it and stuff. And yeah, it's just.
Well, mate, I can see you got a lineup of admirers back there, so I'll let you go and attend to them, eh?
No
Thanks
worries.
very much for coming on, and enjoy the day. Well, we've managed to track down John, the proud owner of this International R200. John, how did you get involved with crawling the Hume?
I've been a member of the Historic Club and the American Iron as well, both clubs.
And being an ex-driver yourself, you know the old Hume Highway only too well?
Yeah, pretty well, yep.
And who did you drive for, and what sort of work did you do?
Stock for a start, Stan Miller, and then later on for a mob in Melbourne, Australian Cargo Enterprises, doing a bit of interstate. And then I bought my own, and that was it then.
And this old girl, she was flash gear in its day. Can you tell us a little bit about the restoration process?
Well, believe it or not, the cabin was in a shed at a bloke's place for 50 years. And I got hold of that, and then I bought another one, complete trucker for Guy at Cobram, and then picked the best of it all out and put it all together like that.
And how long did that take you?
3 years.
3 years, that was an arduous process, I can only imagine.
Chasing a lot of stuff up, like proper front axle and that sort of thing, to make everything right.
Today's just a great time to get out with old mates and catch up and talk about the old times.
Yep, already run into a bloke at back at Benalla I hadn't seen for probably 10 years.
We're standing in front of these two beautiful diamond tees with the proud owner, George, here. George, can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yes, a lovely truck. I drove this model when they were new. It was about 100 came into the country. The one right behind us is 1960 and the one in front is 1959. And they were the pride of the Hume Highway, honestly.
So you were running up and down the Hume Highway in one of these old girls?
When I was 18, I was driving interstate, and I'm 81 now.
You're going all right for 81, you're doing well. But tell us a little bit about the restoration process. How long did that take you?
Well, that one there, no one had restored one of these, and because there were only probably about 100 came into the country, and everyone said I wouldn't get the parts. And I started off with a truck that had one mudguard, no motor, no bonnet, no grille, no gearbox, and a lot of rust. And there it is, finished, and they couldn't believe it. So everyone went searching for them. They found about 12, right? So I was the one that started it off, you know.
It's definitely a labour of love.
Oh yes, yeah. It took 2 years to do this. Yeah, that one there, yeah.
2 years, and you tell me off camera you've got a third one as well.
I have, yeah. It's a 531. It's a smaller model than this, but it looks just as good. Yeah.
Looks just
as Cousins transport on it.
Oh, okay. So back in the day, what sort of work were you doing up and down the Hume Highway?
Well, I mainly I worked for Unilevers. I drove one of these with a Lux packet on the door for Alan Hancock, and I used to cart factory to factory out of Melbourne to Sydney and vice versa, right? And I did that for quite a number of years. And then I left and I went driving for Ansett Pioneer, and I drove Ansett Pioneer Express coaches for a number of years. Right? And these days I own a fleet of taxis and limousines. I still work, and I enjoy the trucks.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So when you started out 18, the Hume Highway, was it a 2-day trip back then?
Was it ever? It was 5.5 hours slogging from Wodonga to Melbourne. And they do it in 3 hours now, you know, and it was hard work, really hard work.
Yeah.
No power steering, nothing like that, underpowered, and no brakes. The brakes were terrible, you know, honest.
So you're hanging on to the old girls, 18-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are the envy of the highway.
Yeah. And the truck up the front there, the Kenworth, that's 450 horsepower, got power steering, it's got air conditioning, and it goes like a racing car, right? And it's so easy to drive, so I decided that's the best way to cart them around rather than try and drive them.
Yeah, and certainly when you get a bit tired, somewhere to lie down also.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, George, thanks very much for chatting to us on Whiteline.
A pleasure.
Enjoy the day, mate. Cheers.
Thank you, cheers.
Well, I've had this truck since late 60s. Used to use it every night till about 86 and then parked it. Retired in 2000, built this house on the back of it, and we've done about 250,000 kilometres since then. It's been fitted with 471T Detroit, MT653 Allison automatic, and has a 3-speed auxiliary box behind the Allison, 411 diffs, 1750 revs is 100 kilometres an hour, and it does about 10 miles to the gallon.
Now, the first Kenworths here in Australia was the S model. A lot of people mistake them for an SAR.
They do, all the time. Everyone asks, says, how's the SAR going? And we've got to correct them, and they do look at you a bit strange until they notice that the bonnet is a lot shorter. And they mistake the S2, which is a flat bonnet, for this one. But when I got into this, I thought I was the truck driver in Australia. After driving Leylands and Bedfords and Austins and Fords, this was something.
So I'm sure both yourself and the old girl got a few stories up your sleeve.
Yeah, it's best we don't talk too many about them. Like, especially speed.
Yeah, we won't go into that one.
No, I wouldn't think so. No, it's I used to cart explosives to Kakadu in it, from Sydney to Kakadu to the mine, and I dare say we've carted everything else, just about, except people. Oh, we're doing that now.
Yeah, well, she's been around the block a few times. Nowadays, it's just parked up, a lady of leisure.
Yes, we just use it now to come to shows like this, go and visit a few friends in different places, but very easy life now to what it was used to.
Good on you, Harry. Thanks very much for catching up with us, and go and enjoy the day, mate. Have a cold one at the end of it.
No, I don't use that, but I'll enjoy the day anyway.
Well, we've managed to track down Bruce from hauling the Hume, the instigator of it all. Mate, where did all that start, and how long ago have you been doing it?
Hey mate, yeah, well it started off with my dad a few years ago. We were heading to Alice Springs for a show. We were driving the old comma here across that we just finished restoring, and Dad was saying that he'd love to do a run up the old road before he kicked the bucket. And I just said, well, when you get back, we need to organise that. And so the old man had a turn when we were out at Alice Springs, and on the way home I thought, I'm definitely going to organise something. And he came good, and and we ended up organising this run. Spoke to a couple of guys about it who said, no, we know the old road fairly well, and there was a fair bit of old road that we could use, and that was basically how it was born, and it sort of blew out of control a bit.
So the old comma we're standing in front of, that goes hand in hand with the old Hume Highway. Can you tell me a little bit about the restoration process?
Yeah, sure. Well, Dad drove one of these back in the 50s, and so I've always had an interest in trucks and used to look at all the old black and white photos, and then the time came, much to my wife's disgust, that I decided to get a truck and restore it, and I wanted one of these. So after a lot of hunting, I found it. It's painted in the same colours as Dad's, and that was basically what kicked it all off. You know, all my mates thought that I was mad, but as you can see now, it's quite a big following there with the old vehicles. And I wasn't the first one to do it, but it's certainly been a vehicle that puts a smile on everybody's face. And it's a nice old girl.
So the next hauling the Hume, when can we expect that?
That'll be, it's actually April next year, April Fool's Day, on the Saturday, and we do the run. We leave Sydney, we leave Clarendon in Sydney, which is sort of out near Windsor area, and we travel down the Northern Road to Camden, and then follow the old road down from there, and we stop at Goulburn for lunch, similar format to what's done here, and then we have a dinner down at Yass on the Saturday night.
Thanks very much for talking with us on Whiteline TV, and enjoy the day, mate. Thanks.
No worries, it's been a pleasure.
As a driver myself, I know that things don't always go to plan. And when you find yourself stuck on the side of the road for something really simple, having the basic tools to get yourself going again is critical. Not only does it cost you your time, but a $9 trailer plug could turn into a whole lot more when you have to consider expensive call-out fees. So what are some of the basic tools we should be carrying? Mike, how are you, mate?
Hi Shane.
So what do you have for us this month?
Mate, today we're going to go through what we at Whiteline Television like to call the must-haves for when you're going for that drive, be it long haul or short haul. Most of these items can be purchased at your local hardware store or automotive store for that matter. The small outlay now could save you a lot of time and money out on the road. So let's have a look at a few of these items. Firstly, you need somewhere to store them. I personally go for a soft tool bag like this one. It's easy to carry, easy to store, and when there's nothing in it, it compresses down to nothing. Next, most importantly, a torch. You need to see what you're doing at night time. Without this, you're stuffed. Next, a screwdriver. Where space is a premium, you don't want to carry 5 or 6 different types. One of these ratcheting screwdrivers with interchangeable bits is a brilliant idea. You can have your Phillips, you can have your flat, you can have your Torx, you can have your Allen keys, all in just one screwdriver. Next, I would take, instead of a whole heap of different spanners, don't like using them, but in emergency situations, 2 different size shifters can get you out of a lot of trouble. A hammer. Great little tool. Pair of vice grips. Electrical tape. A decent pair of pliers. Nothing that squashes, but something that actually cuts. And a test light. These things will get you out of a lot of trouble when you've got no trailer lights, any issues like that. But in this day and age where you are running different trucks in different fleets, 12, 24 volt, make sure it is a multi-volt test light because you will come unstuck. Next thing is a bar. You'd be amazed how many people can't even tilt the bull bar to be able to tilt the cab and be able to have a look at what's going on underneath. Also for tightening your straps and checking those tyres, the beginning, midway and end of trips. The next part is a very important part for us mechanics, and it's your cheat sheets. It's the little card that tells you the wiring diagram for your pinouts for your trailer plugs. It's the fault codes for your transmission, your different engines. These things are invaluable when a mechanic calls to ask what's wrong. If you can tell them what the code is, what the fault is, that alone will save you an exceptional amount of time and your company a lot of money in a mechanic having to go backwards and forwards because they did not know what the fault was. All you told them was that the red light came on and it stopped. Guys, nobody expects you to be a qualified mechanic, but for $100 or $1,000, depending on your budget, you can have these few items to save you that much time on the side of the road and your employer thousands of dollars. Now next month on Whiteline TV, we're going to go through a pre-start on your combination, the way it should be done.
Transhelp is a national charity supporting the health and welfare of road transport personnel and their families. AJ Birchall has the story.
Well, we've all been pushed around, from here and now to the school ground, left our hearts in the lost and found.
Before working on this show, I, like many of us, didn't give transport much thought. It's something that just happens. It's those big annoying things in my way as I'm running late for work or going on holiday. We all take for granted the fact that our groceries are on the shelves, our mail is delivered on time, our fuel is there when we need it. It's a basic way of life for many of us in the community. One thing I definitely didn't consider was the tragic cost for some. What happens when something goes wrong? Who is there to pick up the pieces for those left behind? One such organisation is Transhelp, and I wanted to meet the person behind this charity and the dedicated team of volunteers. So we met up with Di Carroll, the CEO of Transhelp, at a truck stop in northeastern Victoria, and I asked her why she set up this organisation.
Where we've all been laid.
Transhelp's a national charity that we started 10 years ago. It's a legacy to my first husband. He was killed in a truck accident back in 1993, and after he was killed, I had to go through the courts for 3 years assisting our children for compensation after his death. And in 2005, we decided to put his name on the memorial at Tarcutta. And following that, I got involved with the memorial, and I realised that there was people there that needed assistance, because there was no assistance after we lost Gary. I felt that I'd learnt enough that I could actually assist others. So I came up with the concept of Transhelp, and then approached Royans in Wagga, and it was the backing of Bill Andrews from Royans that put the money up to get the foundation off the ground. And from there we started with a mobile tent, a couple of card tables and 2 chairs and some brochures, and 10 years on we've now got 3 mobile units we take out on the road doing preventative health checks, and a 1300 number which works nationally as a lifeline for the industry. Post-traumatic stress and road trauma is huge out on the road. It's normally if there's an accident or a fatal, you can guarantee a truck driver's the first one to come across it, so they see some horrific stuff out there. And after the accident, they're told to go on their way, so that's when it hits them. So we get calls from drivers that have left the scene of an accident or been involved in accidents. We deal with the widows after fatalities. We assist them through the work cover process as well, which can be 3-4 years. And make sure that they know the avenues they have to take to get the benefits and entitlements that they are entitled to.
Mari Benson was a recipient of Transhelp following the tragic loss of her husband David after a crash in Victoria. Her story is a prime example of why we should be more sensitive posting photos of crashes on social media.
I do actually recall 3:15 in the afternoon sitting out the front waiting for the kids to come home from school, and I was reading this really bizarre newsletter about the value of time. Kids got home, had them organised, homework, snacks, all the rest of that. And scrolling through Facebook, there was a report of an accident on the East Link. I just put out a question whether anyone had heard anything or anyone had any more details of any kind of accident, because I hadn't been able to reach David. And someone posted a picture on my wall of the truck, and the second I saw that driver's side guard, yeah, I knew. I grabbed the phone and you don't want to believe it. I tried to call David, and I tried non-stop. The next hour or so the phone just kept ringing through. And I got a call from David's best mate. He was in tears. He didn't have to say anything. He just sort of confirmed it for me. And the police didn't actually get around to home roughly 7 hours later. I think one of the hardest things for me to realise at the time, I was grieving, but so were my kids. And yeah, having to take them through that journey as well. It's very hard. I had a girlfriend who lives up in Queensland who was familiar with Transhelp. I hadn't heard of them at this point, and she put me onto them, and look, it was the best thing that ever happened. The guidance I received from there was invaluable. It's a lifestyle, it's an industry thing, and they get it. They get the lifestyle, they get every aspect of it. Government agencies, 9 to 5, no help whatsoever. She was always there 24/7 when I needed her. But this was, I mean, it's an individual journey. We've got to go through the process. We've got to go through the motions to be able to get through it.
Not only are Transhelp there to support grieving families affected by tragedies, they provide holistic preventative medical advice for drivers' physical and mental health.
We've been fortunate to partner with GP2U, which is a telehealth service which runs nationally. So no matter where you can get mobile service, you can actually have a face-to-face telehealth appointment with the doctor. And we have that service running out of all of our vans. So if we get a truck driver in there that's got some major health issues and we believe he needs a doctor straight away, we can actually do a direct telehealth appointment there and then for them. And that also includes psychologists, psychiatrists, diabetes educators and dietitians. So
Even dietitians?
Yes, which is great. And there is a lot of obese drivers out there. We talk the talk with them too. And we've got some drivers that have now lost 30, 40, 50 kilos after coming through the van, and us getting through to them that they need to do something for their own well-being, so which is great. A lot are turning to cooking in their trucks, which is great, and we try to encourage them to keep away from the energy drinks because they have been known to cause heart attacks and strokes. They also don't realise the sugar content. Just recently I had a driver through the van and he was quite obese, so we went through what he ate for the day, which was quite healthy, but his downfall was he'd drink 2 litres of flavoured milk a day. Once he realised he was drinking 100 kilograms of sugar a year, I didn't know at the time, but his wife, who I've got on social media, contacted me. She said, "I'm not sure what you said to him, but ever since he's been in the van, he's been drinking water." So it worked, and that's what we're trying to give them alternatives. Even the Coke, you know, there's a lot of consumption of Coke, so we encourage them to drink water and then just have a mouthful of Coke as a chaser. There's simple things they can do to make a difference, same as if they have steak and chips. Tell them you only want 6 chips, not 16 dozen. It's because they're eating everything on their plate, and so if you ask for not as much to be on your plate when you first go in, well, that can eliminate a lot of things. Well, we all volunteers. There's no paid workers within the foundation, and being a national charity and some fantastic sponsors like Iveco, who's donated the vans, BP, they donate the fuel to enable us to get around with the vans. And then some other sponsors like Cummins and Caterpillar have assisted with funds to assist in buying the medical needs for the units. So that's been the core behind us getting to where we are today.
Their small fleet of mobile health vans and team of volunteer professionals provides on-the-go instant medical advice.
Okay, so all the time I'm asking them questions, usually about smoking as well, alcoholic drinks, all those energy drinks that they drink on the road, to make sure that that's not affecting their blood pressure and their other health conditions. From then on we get to the blood pressure as we do, take it, and then if it comes up with a rating above normal, then I instruct them as such that it is above normal and try to go through that the energy drinks matter to them, the amount of food you've drunk, the amount of cigarettes that you're intaking, one thing or another. Ask if diabetes is in the family and go through that. As you know, or don't know, maybe it's just a little finger
What's
prick.
this? Oh.
It is.
Yeah.
You have to take the top off. We usually ask them for a finger.
Yep.
Pinprick the finger, get the blood and put it on a little strip that goes into a machine and gives us a reading of blood sugar in the bloodstream at this time.
And you can get an immediate reading
Yes,
right then and there.
within seconds.
Yeah, fantastic.
Again, I try to instruct them at that point that this is only in the middle of what would be their working day. So it's the same as if they go to the doctor. You can raise your blood pressure because you're scared of going in there, what he's going to tell you basically. Whereas if in the middle of the working day the doctor's not arriving, but we are, it seems to be within a normal limit. So go through all these processes in order to give them a reading out on a card, which then they can take away with themselves. It's dated, shows the blood pressure, shows the blood sugar result, and I say to them, always keep it on you, because we're up and down the road. You can have it taken anywhere else. You can have it taken at a chemist. Record it so that when you get to your doctor, you can show him these results, and they can gauge it a bit better than, as I say, walking in there already with your blood pressure up because you're scared of what's going to be told to you at that point in time.
How long would one of these health checks generally take?
The best,
perhaps on average,
depending on how long I talk, but the best part of 5 to 10 minutes, which again is, they don't mind coming in the door for that long. When you go to the doctor and you sit in the waiting room, or go to see a specialist and sitting in the waiting room, you're worried all this time. You're there for a good half an hour. A lot of these guys don't have that time to get off the road. They're worried about financial income, so they don't make that time. There have been instances though when we're out in the van with Di Carroll, the CEO, and we've had to send people off in an ambulance. It's just too critical to let them go on. You realise there's really a point here where they can't. So you've got to ring an ambulance and say, look, pack up your truck, you really should go to a hospital at this point. They're not happy, but they realise that we're talking serious business here.
Do you need special training yourself to be volunteering in one of these, or is it just, you know this stuff because you're a nurse?
Yeah, I'm just a nurse by background, so I don't think you do. You could train yourself. This is what is basic, baseline is all we're talking about. Trying to give them a baseline to guide them into a better health regime, a better way of living even, if we can guide them into choices along the road. Choices, it's all about choices all the time. But it's just a little bit of education too, in a way. They don't hear it maybe often enough, but when they hear it from a stranger, they go, no, maybe they make sense, maybe they don't.
Well, see, I think you're a little bit more than just a nurse, and I think we're very lucky to have the likes of you helping our transport industry and our drivers out there doing a very important job on the road. And I want to thank you both and Di for being on the show today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Although we're alone, we're not alone. There's support, there's friends there for you, definitely.
There are plenty of yarns to be told on the road, whether fact or fiction. These stories are colourful and funny, and at times too strange to be true. This next bloke has been a driver for 40-something years and has more than 1 or 2 stories to tell. He has met many people and travelled all over Australia. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our old mate Mick.
Early 80s or late 70s. I don't know if I can say who I was driving for, but they were brown and white. We come out of 3 of us loaded with wheat. We had hungry boards about that big, no, full, chockers. And we come down through the road, Barradine, into the Pilliga, and the boss rang us up, and didn't ring us up, didn't have phones. We had those 2-way radios, those blue aerials, and told us the scalies. Back then, we used to call them scalies, not RTA or or DMS or whatever bullshit they got now. Told us to stay in the Pilliga. So Jono, he knew his way in the Pilliga apparently, and the Pilliga's like a maze. If you get in there, there's roads goes everywhere. There are all those funny little trees. You don't know where you go. Anyway, we pulled up, and I'm sure it was Bob was in the. We were both in Aerodynes, and Jono was in a W model, and we've been pulled up about 5 or 10 minutes, and the next thing, Jono started up the truck and took off, and we didn't know how to get out of there, so I just jumped up, looked, and Bob, I'm sure it was Bobby's brother, was next to us, and I'd blown the bloody air horns, and I got my lights on, and got the window down. I remember crawling over the top. We didn't have power windows or nothing, crawling the window down and yelling out, Jono's took off, we're going to follow him. Huh? So we called him up on the UHF and the CB and wouldn't answer us. And the only way we could find our way out of there was just follow the dust trail, because he was gone. So we're going, what the bloody hell, what's happened? Because the RTA's out there. And back out onto the Newell Highway, straight into Narrabri. We could see him way up in the distance. Went in, I think it was Ampol back in them days. I think it's a Shell or something now. It was Ampol then. Pulled up in there and we get out, what the bloody hell, what is that? Now you know what's up? He said, oh, he said, this big bloke, he said, he was standing at the side of the cab and he said, I could see the top of his head. It was all frizzy hair and had a big split in the middle. And he said he got up on the steps and the whole truck went down, right? And he jumped up looking at him, jumped in the seat and took off. And as he was taking off, he could hear this big bang in the back of the sleeper. So Bob jumped up in the sleeper and had a look, and the window from the back of the sleeper was on the bed. And we reckon, Jono reckons it was Yowie trying to get in and get him. And he wasn't scared of nothing and nobody, Jono. And that's the only encounter I've had with a Yowie.
Has there been reports of a Yowie out in the Pilliga in the past?
Yeah.
So is the
Pilliga
known for strange happenings to make him want to take off straight away as opposed to just stand his ground?
Well, once I blew 2 tyres with Eastos, and there's no way I was going to pull up the side of the road. I just kept going. And I think that's what a lot of blokes did. You didn't change a tyre in there. Back in them days, they reckon there was Yowies. Big tough truck drivers scared of a Yowie.
What is a Yowie, Mick?
A big bloke with frizzy hair with a part down the middle. Hey, so, and that's as true as I'm standing here, that story. Yeah. And I think I just started driving back then, and that's where I really, really learnt to drive with those big, heavy loads, eh?
This next story is about a man and his determination to build a successful business in the road transport industry. Ken Easter started his business back in 1976 and 40 years later is still going strong with a fleet of 70 trucks and a workforce of 110. A family-owned and operated business, KS Easter Haulage is without a doubt one of Australia's success stories in this challenging industry known as road transport. I'm here with Ken Easter, Managing Director of KS Easter Haulage. I asked him where it all began.
I recall when my father was an owner-driver and he'd come home of an afternoon, probably when I was about 5-year-old, and drive in the drive and I'd step on the running board of his truck and ride up the driveway, and that's pretty well where that sort of thing started, and the longer that happened and as I got to worship the ground my father walked on and the trucks, that was just always going to be the case. I mean, my father had trucks, my step-grandfather had trucks, 2 of my uncles had trucks. It's not rocket science to work out how come I got involved in the transport industry. As a driver, well, when I turned 19, initially I'd worked for my father's company for a couple of years before I turned 19. As soon as I turned 19, I achieved my licence, which was the minimum age you could get it then, and that's when I first started driving in the transport industry. The first truck that I bought belonged to a very good friend of my father's that was killed in a car accident. His wife had 5 trucks, I think, and I purchased a G88 Volvo bogie drive with a triaxle tipper on it, with a single axle pusher. That was my first truck.
Ken started his business in Newcastle, but he soon realised that he needed to relocate.
When I started in Newcastle, I was subbing for my father. Later on, I went further afield. I had a flat top on for a while, running interstate to Townsville, numerous other things. I got into the refrigerated freight business and time-sensitive freight business. Most of that was running between Sydney and Brisbane. So to make life easier, I needed to be at one end or the other. I don't particularly like Sydney as a place. Brisbane had a lot going for it. My wife and young family didn't want to move to Brisbane, but in the end they did, and they're ever so thankful these days. So it was just inconvenient to be servicing trucks in the middle of the week and doing other things in Newcastle, so I chose to move to Brisbane and haven't looked back.
JJ and Matt are two of Ken's sons and have grown up in the family business.
It's just in your blood, and seeing what your dad does and seeing what the whole family was in transport over the years, and it's just what I've known and just what I've grown up with a passion for with trucks. And I think that's one of the things that's making it hard these days for people to come into the industry, because kids don't get to grow up around dad with trucks. They're coming out of school to try and get into trucks. And because of OH&S and compliance and business these days, where you can't take your kids to work, you can't take your kids in your truck. Kids don't grow up with that passion of heavy vehicles and being around big machinery and trucks, whether it be trucks or forklifts or loaders or machinery. They don't get to do that.
And then it rolls on from there. You know, half the problem with OH&S is when I was a kid, I'd get in the truck with my old man and go to wherever he was going, and he showed me how to drive a truck, load a trailer, unhook it, wash it, grease it, change brakes, whatever. You can't do that now. I've got 3 sons that aren't allowed to come here and walk around the yard with me and work in the workshop or get in a truck or whatever, because they're just not allowed to do that. How do they learn?
For any business to be successful, they need good equipment. So I asked Ken what factors he considers when purchasing his trucks.
I have a preference for American equipment. Mind you, we run a percentage of the European fleet. I'm not opposed to that. We understand American equipment. We do all our own rebuilds, ease of rebuilds and everything here. For the 2 different brands of American trucks that we use, they have a lot of common parts. We do all our own repairs, servicing, tyre fitting, everything here. Some of it comes down to my preference. Service intervals and service on the eastern seaboard especially. Everything we do is time sensitive, and if we have a problem on road, we need to have it fixed very, very promptly. It all comes into the purchase. Doesn't always come down to my likes, often does, but whole of life and ease of rebuild or repair, parts, on-road service.
Easters are well known for their lights and bling. The man responsible for this is Matt, who studied art at school.
It's pretty easy to throw stainless and lights and a heap of squiggly lines on a truck, but it doesn't mean it's going to look pretty. It takes a bit of sorting out. Not everybody likes my style and my taste, but at the end of the day, I'm the bloke in charge of doing it, so what's on there's on there, and I like to think it looks good. We get a bit of recognition for how our stuff looks going down the road, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Our transport industry is an ever-changing environment, with compliance and OH&S playing a major role in the day-to-day operations of transport companies.
The challenges that my father has had over the years are different to challenges that we face now and going forward. Compliance and evolution into the future is our biggest challenge, I feel. Whereas before it was just, over the years, it's just been getting the job done. Now it's being able to get the job done legally and what the law requires, and the fact that the nation is becoming a free global market trading place. A lot of the businesses in Australia are now global businesses, so they expect the standards to be this high, not just a thong wearing, blue singlet, stubby wearing truck driver job.
I think the first and foremost biggest problem is OH&S. I understand it's necessary, I understand you've got to have it. But I have to put a bloke, you know, we get a male or female come for a job here as a truck driver, and they've been a truck driver for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it may be. But I've got to put them through an unhook and hook up procedure training, 3 points of contact training, warehousing stuff, any amount of things they need to spend nearly a full day here doing. Bloke's been climbing in and out of a truck for, like I said, 10, 20, 30 years. They've been hooking up and unhooking trucks every day of their working life as a truck driver, 2, 3, 4, half dozen times a day, yet I have to then train that bloke to do that just because he comes here. I believe there should be something in place like a forklift ticket. You go and get your forklift licence, you can drive a forklift. You go and do a warehouse and distribution course, you can come and work in my warehouse here. You should be able to go and do this course. You know, I know technology changes and turntables change and what have you, but everybody knows how to climb in and out of a vehicle using 3 points of contact, or in a trailer, or whatever they're climbing on, they know how to use 3 points of contact. Why do they have to come and do that here? And then their next job, and then the next job, and I've got to employ someone to train them to do that. I've got to, bloke's got to take a day out of his life to come and do that. He might not like this job after the first trip or the first day. So he's wasted a day to come and do 2 days work to run to Sydney and back. For what purpose?
TruckSafe has been a part of the industry for the past 20 years and is based on a set of minimum standards a transport business should meet for it to be a safe, responsible operation.
No, the TruckSafe is quite good. We're self-regulated, so we don't have to present our trucks for inspection, but we have our own brake testing and shaker machine here, the same as the authorities we have. We have our own hoist here. We have a good record in that area.
The strict maintenance program implemented by Easters sees the trucks and trailers over the shaker and brake test machine every service. This, along with computer downloads and other compliance-related measures, ensures their commitment to road safety.
Because of chain of responsibility, everyone needs to make sure they're doing their part to make sure everything's okay and everyone's covered.
We have, for a long while now, had satellite tracking of different sorts in most of our equipment, and we've had that in for more than a decade. We've found problems for the last 12 months. We've done a lot of experiment or checks and various tracking systems, but some of our trucks actually have 3 different systems in them for speed monitoring, which has been a major problem, getting a true readout. Now, some of these systems have up to a 6 km/h variance in actual speed compared to the ECM on the truck. We've even found a problem with the truck ECMs having wrong times in them that weren't even understood by the OEMs in Australia. We've had 2 different systems in our truck for quite some time now, mainly to do with tracking and monitoring of speeds and issuing different penalties for driver for overrunning off hills and other things. As recently as last month, we've settled on one supplier for that equipment. Along with that equipment, to help us overcome some incidents with motorists or false claims and other things, we will have 2 cameras on each truck pointing back, one in the centre facing forward, and another on the left side of the cab focused on the driver. With the unit that's going to go in these trucks, they will have an Android device in there. We'll have voiceover on it as well. We'll have all their training manuals in there, permits in there, pre-trip checks, everything will be in that Android device. To put that in all the trucks and put the monitoring on all of our trailers to help with compliance and logbook times for drivers and pre-warning and servicing for the trucks, the cost of that is just over $700,000.
Fatigue management is one of the key areas that provides challenges to the road transport industry. More discussion between authorities and industry is needed to allow some flexibility. This would cater for unplanned delays, such as serious road traffic events.
The fatigue management regime is very difficult to control. The 14 hour, we do our own BFM courses and everything here that works in with our system. The biggest problem we have with fatigue management is having employees understand it. It's so complicated. We've got people that have been here 20 years that have gone through different regimes. I truly don't know how our on-road officers understand it, because we study it all the time and we have very, very strong dialogue with some of the guys here that argue black and blue that they're right and wrong in their book. The system is very, very difficult to understand. The 14-hour thing works well for us. There's still not enough leeway in it. The other day we had a problem where there were 2 major accidents on the Pacific Highway, several hundred kilometres apart. We happen to have 13 trucks held up there, one way or the other. The problem being, while the trucks were there for 6 or 7 hours, they kept moving up, so they couldn't fill in a rest period. Then we had 4 trucks that got as far as Chindra, and around that area. So then we had to run a car down there. They're half hour, 45 minutes from home, and they can't go any further because they're out of time on their book because of a road accident. Same with trucks going into Sydney. That makes up life expensive and difficult. So there needs to be a little bit more leadway, but in general, the 14-hour thing works for us. The Sydney-Brisbane leg is the longest overnight, most difficult leg for time-sensitive stuff with one driver. So it doesn't take much for something to go wrong.
All the stuff that we do is nighttime driving. It's time-sensitive, so we must ensure that our drivers, when they're on their breaks, are sleeping. They're managing their fatigue. They're not up all day out doing the gardening or shopping with the missus or something like that. They need to be resting, so when it comes to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night when they've got to go, they can get from point A to point B as quickly and legal, but without having those fatigue breaks during the day and making sure they're having the rest, they're not going to be able to perform for night time. I mean, there might be a good driver who's been great and have a great history of being a produce runner or a general carrier. That doesn't mean they're very good at time-sensitive freight over night time, because they do more daytime running when critical fatigue hours don't affect them as much.
It just amuses me when we come on competition with some other people in some other areas that don't have the degree of compliance that we have, which doesn't make it quite a fair playing field. It takes a lot of explaining to customers why we have a rate that's maybe a little higher than some others, but if they want us to prove compliance, and we are audited by our biggest customers at least twice a year. We're audited by WA Transport, we're audited by Queensland Transport Department. You just have to have it. The more difficult they make it, the better it makes us look. I hope it stays that way.
It has been a long road for Ken to get to where he is today, and it hasn't been without its twists and turns and even a few potholes along the way. But this year, Ken is celebrating his 40th year in business.
I've seen the good times, I've seen the bad times. It's been a roller coaster, but he's never given up.
You need to be really committed. You need to be really enthusiastic, and you need to keep that up for a long time. Be aware that it's going to have an effect on your family for a long, long time. If you're going to be committed, and you need to be committed, it will be all-consuming for a long way. But it can be very rewarding. If you make your choice, it's a big choice.
In coming episodes, I'm going to take a look at electronic work diaries and what it will mean for us and the industry. AJ meets with Mari, who owns Last Ride, a well-presented W model that takes drivers on their last ride. We're also going to investigate the Pilliga, a stretch of forest between Narrabri and Coonabarabran, reported to be one of Australia's most haunted roads. But before we go, a quick reminder that the ski season kicked off June long weekend for the eastern states. This means extra traffic heading to the ski fields and extra police on the roads. So until next time, keep it safe, and we look forward to seeing you again on Whiteline Television.
At 19, and I applied for a job on a Friday afternoon after being warned by my dad not to. Went over and had a test drive with the owner. First thing he asked me for was my licence. And I said, I haven't got one. So we went for the drive and we came back and he said, if you got a licence on Monday you can start. And I had my licence, I got it 8 o'clock Sunday night at the police station, which you did in them days.